Imagine walking to school like you had done so many times before. You wave goodbye to your mother, you carry your school bag. You're already thinking about the day ahead. Then a white van stops beside you. Before anyone can react, you're gone. For your family, the next few hours are filled with panic. The next few days become a desperate search. The next few years become a nightmare that never seems to end. Police search everywhere. Neighbors volunteer. Missing posters cover the city. Television stations replay your photograph over and over again. But every search ends the same way. Nothing. As the months pass, people slowly begin to fear the worst. But they were wrong. The little girl everyone believed had disappeared forever was still alive. She was being held inside a hidden underground chamber beneath an ordinary house, less than 30 minutes from where she had vanished. This is the true story of Natascha Kampusch. On the morning of August 23rd, 1998, 10-year-old Natascha Kampusch left her home in Vienna, Austria, and started the short walk to school. She never arrived. A witness later reported seeing a man force a young girl into a white van before speeding away. Within hours, one of Austria's biggest missing child investigations was underway. Officers questioned hundreds of people. Vehicles matching the description were inspected. Search teams combed forests, parks, abandoned buildings, and nearby neighborhoods. Every possible lead was investigated, yet none of them led to Natascha. What investigators didn't know was that her kidnapper, Wolfgang Psychlopel, had planned the crime long before that morning. Beneath his home, hidden behind a heavy steel door, he had built a reinforced underground chamber. It was tiny. There were no windows, no sunlight, no fresh air. For a frightened 10-year-old child, that room became her entire world. Days turned into months, months turned into years. Outside, children her age celebrated birthdays, finished school, and grew into teenagers. Inside the chamber, time seemed frozen. Wolfgang controlled almost every part of her life. He decided when she could eat, when she could sleep, when she could leave the room. Even after he slowly allowed her into other parts of the house to cook and clean, she was never truly free. He watched her constantly. Escape seemed impossible, but Natascha refused to give up. She paid attention to his routines. She noticed the moments when he became distracted. She waited, not for days, not for months, for years. Then, on August 23rd, 2006, exactly 8 years after she was kidnapped, everything changed. Wolfgang asked her to help clean his car outside the house. It seemed like an ordinary chore. Then his phone rang. As he stepped away to answer it, he looked away for only a few moments. For most people, a few seconds mean nothing. For Natascha, they meant everything. She ran. She didn't look back. She sprinted down the street, knocking on doors and begging for help before anyone could stop her. A nearby resident called the police. When officers arrived, the frightened young woman calmly introduced herself. "My name is Natascha Kampusch." At first, it sounded impossible. The missing 10-year-old would now be 18. But investigators checked her identity. Then her dental records. There was no mistake. Against every expectation, she had survived. As news of her escape spread across Austria, Wolfgang Psychlopel realized the police were closing in. Rather than face arrest, he died by suicide after stepping in front of a moving train. When investigators finally entered the hidden chamber, even experienced officers were stunned. The room was so small that it was difficult to imagine anyone surviving there for days. Yet Natascha had endured it for 8 years. Her story didn't end with her escape. She faced the enormous challenge of rebuilding a life that had been stolen from her as a child. Over time, she chose to tell her own story, speaking publicly about survival, trauma, and resilience instead of allowing her kidnapper to define her life. Today, the case of Natascha Kampusch remains one of the most extraordinary survival stories in modern history. It reminds us that hope can survive even in the darkest places. And sometimes, the greatest act of courage isn't escaping in a single moment. It's refusing to stop believing that one day, that moment will come.